What's up, everybody? Welcome back to All Things Nerdy with Nate and Joe. I'm Nate. That's Joe. Today we have a returning guest talk about a fan favorite, Fallout. Well, Fallout in general, with the new show coming out and everything. We all got some hot takes and some interesting thoughts about the show, the games, Bethesda, and all that. So I can't wait to jump into it, and hopefully we can get lucky, because that's a Fallout thing there. And it's a great show, Joe.
Well, and it's about Fallout, but it's about underlying issues and stuff like that, and not necessarily issues, but underlying topics, those kinds of things. I literally had to cut Ben and Nate off in the midst of like a debate before we even started. So this should be a great episode. But without further ado, Ben, talk nerdy to us.
Yes, I'm going to start by, I have this mug. It's a lot of initials. I have brought peace, freedom, justice, and security to my new empire. Your new empire? Don't make me kill you. Anakin, my allegiance to the Republic, to democracy. So anyway, this is Star Wars Episode 3. I'm a huge nerd. Excited to talk nerdy.
As I sip from my Dragon Ball Z tumbler.
Nice.
I have nothing. I have anime statues, anime poster, marriage thing.
Face.
Yeah,
your
my
face
face.
is just your
I'm a nerd. I've played all the games, So I guess the big thing, let's jump into it. So the show was just released, right? And we were talking about this backstage, kind of the show being released, but Bethesda not capitalizing on it with a new Fallout game. I know, because I'm on Steam a lot, that Fallout 76 has had a massive surge of players because of that. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I think that Bethesda dropped the ball totally. I mean, the reason why we're not getting Fallout 5 is because a year or two ago, they were like, oh, we have to work on Starfield. It's this big new thing. And that was ultimately a flop. And then they're like, oh, we have to do, Elder Scrolls 6, which I'm personally very excited for. But they're a massive studio owned by Microsoft, and they can only do one game from one franchise every 3 years. It's ridiculous to me. So yeah, I think they definitely dropped the ball.
Yeah.
So I think you may have mentioned it in the like when we were backstage, but like they couldn't have planned for it to be that successful, right? Like they could have put out the show and it just flopped and there wasn't any really movement behind it, and then they would have had this whole game coming up and put all this marketing and money into it, and then everything flopped, right? Like they didn't have to, essentially. Like they didn't have to take that risk, because now they have all of this extra following, and they already had a game out that now they can get people to go play and go spend money for. And they didn't have to take that risk of like, hey, let's put all this money into getting a new game out faster than we originally planned, because now we're just going to have people buy the old game.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely view it a few different ways. Like maybe they're thinking strategically, like, oh, hey, let's release this show and see if there's greater interest, see if we can appeal to a broader audience, and then we can justify greater investment in speeding this game up. Or from my point of view, it's like you don't plan for failure, you plan for success. And so I think if you know that there's a loyal, ardent community that loves Fallout, like I would say, and there is, it's huge. And people have been calling for Fallout 5 for forever. And so I do think it's a miss, but maybe the silver lining is now they're like, okay, well, everybody loves this. Greatest launch since Rings of Power for Amazon. So now it's a no-brainer. I think it's more of a no-brainer than the Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts, and I'm going to just kind of work through it here. First thought, Joe, you said, oh, they didn't know it's going to be a success. And Ben, you said backstage that for every one successful hit show, there's like 10 flops. However, they wouldn't throw millions and millions and millions of dollars into this if they didn't think it would be successful. They just missed the mark on capitalizing it. Now, a lot of people did go back and get Fallout 76, Fallout 4, and Fallout New Vegas. Fun fact, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, and Fallout 76 are all free on Amazon Prime Gaming right now. If you have a PC or an Xbox, you don't have to buy them. You can go get it for free. So go do that if you're at all interested. However, they thought it was going to be successful. How successful? No, probably not, right? But with the community that Fallout already has, the fact that they were releasing this and didn't have a game to capitalize. Now, I'm insanely excited for Skyrim 6 and all that as well, right? It's going to be great. Skyrim 6? What is it? Elder Scrolls 6, yeah. Yeah. So I'm insanely excited about it. But the fact that we're having to go back, and even Fallout 76 was 4 years ago, it's still insanely outdated for the engines that are released and everything like that. Microsoft is a massive studio. The fact that they couldn't work on multiple games, especially Fallout being the IP that it is, I mean, they just did a crossover with Magic the Gathering, right? There's Fallout Magic the Gathering cards. They released this. They clearly know that Fallout has a following and a base. The fact that they can't put out a game, and also we talked about this backstage, it is essentially copy paste with a new story of what it is, right? Fallout 4 combat, Fallout 3 story, or New Vegas story was great. The graphics are just dated and stuff, right? So like the MMO thought with 76 was cool, and hopefully it's taking it off. I started playing it a little bit, but like it should not be that hard to be able to put out a game that would be quality around this same release. Think about how much money they would have made. Like, I hope they fire someone because of this, because the fact that they couldn't time and put this together is crazy, because it cost them a lot of money. But what's going to happen now is they see the success, they see it, so they're going to either just do it again, release another one, and people will be like, oh, the story's great, really wish we had a game, or they're going to rush the game and it's gonna be shit.
Hopefully that's not the case. And I also think it's interesting looking at Bethesda. Like, we look at them, Skyrim, which came out in 2011, I think, like Fallout 3 and 4, but the last few games they've come out with have been total flops. I mean, Fallout 76 was so buggy, had no content. They promised the moon and they gave us a moldy wheel of cheese.
Which Activision is known for, by the way. Like, it is like their wheelhouse of what they do.
So like I also think that like it's easy to, I'm sure the people that were working on all the old amazing games are no longer there. So hopefully they can kind of get it together, and to your point, like not rush like so many games are like these days, and actually like get it right. At this point, I'd rather wait 3 years for a great Fallout than 1 for something that's awful.
Yeah, I mean,
but on the same vein though, you're like, oh, you didn't capitalize. You should have had a game ready for the show. But then you're like, but I'll wait like 6 years for
it's true.
Game.
I'm
like,
a hypocrite.
Make up your mind, Ben and Nate. Do you want a copy pasted game, or do you want something that's worth the wait?
I'd love to know how long they were in development for the show, because I do agree. Like, I'm kind of speaking from both sides of my mouth, but I do think that like if you know that you're going to invest millions of dollars into a show, hopefully like it's been in development for a couple of years, and hopefully you can reprioritize. Maybe it's easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess none of us work in video game creation or video production, so we don't necessarily know the hard, like how hard it is. I feel like with a video game, it is harder, right? It's like when you think of like a multiplayer online game, you don't know what bugs, you don't know what like how to expand it and like recreate like all the bugs that could happen, like with bandwidth issues and that kind of stuff, versus a video, like once you have it created, edited, and released it, I mean, pretty much done. There's not really any bugs. It's really the streaming platforms problem on that side of it. So I think a video game probably has a lot more that you have to do post creation, at least.
Yeah, that's true.
So it said the budget is 153 million, but I don't see how long it took them to do it.
I think the trailer was released about 1.5 years ago, which meant that filming had wrapped. Maybe it was last November. I don't know. It was definitely not 2024. So I would say it probably took at least 2 years from like concept being approved to creation. And also like we were talking about before, they probably just really placed a lot of their bets on creating new IP, which was Starfield. Like there was a lot of excitement for that. And it's like, well, I can make the argument like if Fallout 5 was a flop and we were talking about Starfield coming out, it's like, man, why didn't you create something new? Everybody's just regurgitating old IP. So I don't think it's necessarily bad that they tried to do something different in their order of games, but I just wish that they would come through and deliver us good stuff.
But Microsoft is so big, right? So Fallout 76 was like 4 years ago. So from there, you start working on the next one. There might even be overlap, right? So you get Fallout 5, like 3 years after 76. See if it succeeds, whatever. but they're still they don't even have one in the works. So even if this thing is insane, like the show was insanely successful, and they're seeing all this, traffic to their old games, they're still probably 3, 4, 5 years away from a new Fallout game. Like there's no way for them to capitalize on this without putting just trash out there, which Microsoft is not above doing. And I said Activision earlier, they own Activision, so part of it, right? But like I hate it because the show is good, and we're going to jump into the show here shortly. And the games are great, but the games still follow the same kind of trajectory. It's the same thing, rinse and repeat, with some different, role play, some different, graphics, different engines, different weapons, stuff like that. But it's still the same style of game up until Fallout 76, which was more of an MMO style than a single player. And it was terrible. Upon release, there was no content. You couldn't stay connected. Supposedly, it was pretty bad.
Man.
Yeah.
But I was looking up. It's the the director Todd Howard said that Fallout 5 wouldn't happen until the developer finished Elder Scrolls 6. So it's like, is there just one developer, like in a shop somewhere, chained? like you only got one guy, like this massive company, and one guy that's all that's doing this? Like,
yeah, it's wild. I'm thinking about like indie developers and how quickly they can work, and then like and I don't want to like reduce it to like big corporations so they just move slowly and they try to be safer, but like it's not a great mix where like you go slow, you're measured, but also you don't deliver, right? Like if you're going to go slow, you should do it right. If you go fast, I think it's easy to forgive like mistakes.
I'm also connected with a lot of like game developers on LinkedIn. A lot of them are unemployed right now. They could be, chopping away at a new Fallout game. And also, like, if you're going to take your shots, that's great. But if you are, as a company, going to take shots, you should also be banking on what your consistencies are. So Elder Scrolls, Fallout, like there's always been an appetite for those. Why not just keep making the money? Because you're going to bank a ton off of it. There's going to be a lot of revenue there.
Yeah, for sure.
No. So more to the show. What are your thoughts on the show? You like it? You don't like it?
I want to give a shout out to Walton Goggins. I think Walton Goggins, he plays the ghoul in the show. He is such an incredible actor. And I have a kind of a personal, I've met him before. I was in Vice Principals as an extra, which was a HBO show. And I acted with him. And I was a barista at the time. This was a long time ago when I lived in Charleston. And he came into the coffee shop. He came into the coffee shop and he recognized me. And he was like, said to all my coworkers at the time, "Oh, hey, Ben Greenaway, it's so nice to see you. You're the best actor on set," which clearly I was not even a real actor, right? But just like such a nice guy, like so down to earth, so humble. And, he's been in a lot of great movies and shows, Hateful Eight, Vice Principals, a lot of other stuff, but he just always kills it. And I feel like he really is the heart and soul of the show, and it is the anti-hero. And I think that the show really got right the tone, the emotional tone of this like difficult like future, but quirky and funny and weird, and it almost looks like a horror movie or a horror show, but it also plays as a comedy at the same time. So it's really good.
Joe, have you watched any of it?
I have not. I will add it to my list for this weekend though, because it sounds like it's going to be pretty good.
It is really good. So I'm only a few episodes in. I'm watching it with my wife, so it's like a slog. By the time we, get around to watching TV, she's like, "I'm going to bed," but I'm like, "Give me an hour." She's like, "No," and I'm like, "Damn it." So I'm only 3 episodes in, but I will say, like, he is a great actor, and I think they casted really, really well. And I think that their character building has been quick and efficient. A lot of times these shows, like, it's just like they can like really draw it out or just miss the mark on like having a connection with the characters. But how can I say all this without like any kind of spoilers or anything because of Joe? But like some of the incidents early on, right? Like you see kind of how they react, what they do, who they are, where they come from, all those things, and it helps you build that emotional connection. I think right now The only one that I'm really lacking from is like the Brotherhood of Steel. I'm only 3 episodes in, so like they haven't really dove into him too much. But overall, the world building is fantastic. Like I think they hit Fallout. Like when I think of Fallout, the world that they have put together is perfect. Apocalyptic, just you know, like rough and tumble and like surviving. It's really well done.
I also think like oh, sorry, go ahead.
So I looked up the cast really quick when you were mentioning, but I saw that Norm is played by Rico Suave from
Oh my gosh!
So it's gonna be hard to like see past that for me a little bit. Just
I didn't realize that until my fiance pointed it out, and now I was like, I can't unsee that. But yeah, it's very funny. He does a great job.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting. Like this is not spoilery, but the show, I tried to view the show through the lens of like, am I watching somebody playing a Fallout video game? And like one thing that I noticed is like all or many of the characters, I think they are ethically gray. I think that like you could try to typecast them into like they're good or they're bad or whatever, but the show does a really good job of explaining like why they are the way that they are and how the post-apocalyptic landscape / society like crafted them that way, and ultimately they make choices for their own survival. And so, you know, I think a long time ago shows would be much more black or white, but this is much more in the middle.
So talking about that, I so far I think they've done a great job of that, and I think the survival aspect, like being able to justify what they do. Where when I watch like House of Dragons, I don't like any of them because they're all just selfishly politically motivated. It's not for survival, it's for advancement. And like it bothers me. Like I want a good guy to root for, a good person character to root for, right? The protagonist. But with this new Fallout series, like there's not a true protagonist, in my opinion, so far. It is literally like survival, but you don't mind their actions because you know, like in this given situation, I would do the same thing, if not more.
Yeah, that's interesting. You're kind of rooting for everybody. And I agree with you. In House of the Dragon, I'm rooting for nobody, but I'm rooting for everybody in Fallout.
Yeah, like I don't know how everybody wins, but like I hope they do. What'd you say, Joe?
I'm rooting for the cast with the dragons, obviously.
Well, they all have dragons, bro.
Not all of them.
I think that's my biggest issue with that. So I'm really glad Fallout did it well. And like I find myself like depending on the situation, which I think we should dive into, you know, what you were talking about, like games that give you options on how, you know, choices on how you want to proceed. I think is really cool. And I think in Fallout, I do a lot like you. Like I put myself in that situation. Like, what would I do? Where would I be? What would my response be? You know? So like, I think I watch it through the lens of the video game as well. Not that you have to play the video games in order to see it, but I think it does add an extra layer of appreciation for me.
Yeah. And that's another thing they did right. It's like they really, for video game players, they really immerse you into the same universe that you're comfortable with or used to, even though it's different. Like, you know, I was watching a person walk through the desert and there's like a billboard for sarsaparilla cola or something, which is like in the Fallouts, right? It's what you can drink. And the TV, there's the logo of the same TV that you have in the beginning of Fallout 4. And, you know, it's just like all these teeny tiny details that like game players can understand. It's like they totally like hit the mark in terms of giving you the exact same universe and giving you characters that you might have chosen to be in one of the games.
Yeah. Like I am really stoked that they like took it. Like, so we talked about like nerd culture, and I think this is one of the things where Amazon kind of missed the mark because like they knew it was going to be a hit. They threw a lot of money into it, but nerd culture right now is massive, right? Like everybody is there. Everybody wants to do it. Like if you look at the Mario movies, you look at like the culture take behind like Bowser and Jack Black and stuff like that. If you look at the game adaptation of The Witcher and the following that it has on Netflix, they knew it was going to be successful. But I think Fallout did a really good job, like The Witcher, taking a video game and like adapting it to TV, but making it very like A, relevant to the times, and B, like there's layers, there's characters, there's everything. It's not just like a run of the mill, like, oh, look at this action. Like there's literally everything you want in a TV show, and you would have no idea it's a video game if everyone didn't tell you it was a video game adaptation.
Yeah, I'm interested to see it now. You guys are like talking it up. I'm gonna message you both this weekend, be like, I watched it, it was great. But I think Nate, you asked this question of making decisions, like being given that ability to make decisions. Like Ben, when you're playing through a game like Fallout, like do you kind of do how Nate does it and be like, what would I do in real life? Or do you just go through and be like, you know what, I'm going to be evil.
No,
I'm going to take advantage of everyone.
I think with Fable, I first played a game called Fable, and if you were evil, you could start growing, devil horns, which I just thought was like so weird and interesting, and something that didn't seem like should be allowed in games, at least from my point of view. And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. And so I think like for most of those choice games, like Baldur's Gate or Fable or Mass Effect, like I would want to be evil, but I think that's because like the society around you was like mostly like good, like the society was stable and all the rest, so it was like the easy playthrough, it was good, and I wanted to do something more interesting. But Fallout's the opposite. Like everybody is like feral and awful, and for me, like it's more interesting to be good because it's so easy to steal from somebody or whatever else, and so I guess I like to be the foil of the universe around me. That feels fun. So I do it less about like what I might do and more about like how do I zig where everybody else is zagging.
That makes sense. That's an interesting take on it. And I think the first game I ever played that you could make decisions on was like Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh my gosh, amazing game.
Yeah, and then I think Fable was like one of the second ones, but like I did enjoy like how it affected your appearance in Fable, where it was like you could be really good and light was like following around you, or your skin would start kind of melting off, and everyone would run and scream when you walked up. So it's like
being evil is not a good skincare routine. So yeah, you gotta.
Being evil is not great on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when it comes to games, like I usually try to, if you can do like an evil run or a good run, I usually start with the good run because like they're just easier, right? Like let's take Baldur's Gate, for example. Like going through an evil dirge run was a legit difficult thing to do, like emotionally speaking, especially going through. I think if I started with an evil run, I would be more okay with it. But like doing an evil dirge and seeing like some of the things you had to do to some of the characters I actually like already had the attachments to made it very difficult. But usually I start with good and then go evil. But a lot, like Ben said, it depends on the world, right? Like it does feel like evil is more accepted in Fallout. So like doing what you need to do to survive doesn't feel evil. It feels like a necessary choice. Or in Baldur's Gate, when I'm just mercilessly murdering everyone, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
when you have the children screaming and running from you, like feel a little bit bad on the inside.
The tiefling's asking you not to do it. And you're like, I made it this far.
Yeah, I think in Baldur's Gate, one of the worst feelings I had was when I accidentally blew up the little goblins, and I was like, no, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to kill you. I didn't know that was going to happen.
I don't think I've ever cared about the goblins.
Well, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't It wasn't goblins. It was just the short people. Like they were enslaved.
The dwarves or the.
Yeah, I think it was like they were the short people that were enslaved in that temple. They had to go save, and then I accidentally blew them up, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry.
So if you could change anything about the show, Ben, what would you change?
How it was released. I don't like that it was released all at once. Mostly because this is not a spoiler, but I think that if it were released on a weekly one episode at a time, or probably the first 3 all at once and then like every week, it would build intrigue. And there's a lot of stuff like in the season that you have to think about and consider, and it was really fun watching it with my fiance. I watched it for a second time with her because I already knew all the answers, and so she doesn't like to binge stuff all at once. We like watched one a night, and so she had all these questions and trying to figure things out. And I just think that level of like making it more of a cultural period where people are trying to like discuss spoilers or not spoilers but theories, I think adds to the show. Whereas we got it all at once, so you could digest it how you want, which ultimately they probably have data to back up why they did it that way. Like they may lose people if they go on a weekly basis, but I think it could have added. But that's really the only note that I have. I mean, I just thought it was so well done.
You say that there's probably data to back it up. I actually saw something. It was either yesterday or the day before. Oh my gosh, I'm trying to think. Anyways, I can't remember what network it was, but they said they're going to go back to like weekly releases because of the success of a lot of the shows recently that have drawn people to doing that versus just like full releases, because it allows people a week to talk about what happened, what they think is going to happen. But also, like, I'm on episode 3. Joe hasn't watched it. I go click on Facebook right now. It could be an episode 10 spoiler, where if it's week by week, I can get through 1 week or 1 episode in a week. But it allows, like, if you look at Game of Thrones, like from week to week, everyone talked about it. Now, granted, Game of Thrones outside of season 8 was like the best TV show ever, right? But like, it was an event.
It's a whole engine. Like, it's an entire season of intrigue and discussion. I mean, like, podcasts have like what happened in the last episode. Like, let's talk about what we think might happen. And when you do a big dump, like, I'm sure that it's great to get everybody on board, but I hope in season 2 it's weekly.
So I personally love that the fact that they just released it all, because I do want to binge it, right? I haven't, but I do want to. But also, like, I don't think Fallout would have had the same success had they done just 1 episode, right? Like, I think they would have needed to release like 3 initially, and then maybe week by week. Because after episode 1, like, I mean, I know some of what happened, and like some of it I was like, dang, that's kind of crazy. But if you have no concept of Fallout, there's no foundation there to really bring you back. You're just like, okay.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe like for season 1, they were like, let's build the world for these new people, and then maybe in the future it's like, okay, now let's build the hype and excitement. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I never really thought about the whole like, hey, let's make an event like once a week thing. Because my initial reaction were like, no, don't release it all at once. I'm like, that's blasphemy. Why would you? If you give me the option, I want it all at one time. Let me just finish it. But yeah, that makes sense. Like, as it gains popularity, that they would separate it out to make it like, hey, week to week, that's what's trending. That's what people are talking about. Like, content's going to be created about it, like that, versus like, well, now it's this one thing. It's going to have the pop right here at the beginning, and then it's just going to fade away.
And they still haven't announced intent to even make a new Fallout. Not that I've seen, anyways.
I've heard, I think Todd Howard, I think that's his name, the head of Bethesda. I think he did say they're working on Elder Scrolls now. They're going to do Fallout after, but they're looking into ways to expand so they can focus on multiple projects at once, which is like, they're looking into it.
The one developer. They have the one developer that does it all.
It's so stupid.
But Nate, like, are you going to be mad? Like, I think we talked about it last week or week before, like how certain shows, like, they copy and paste, like, it's the same show. Like, are you going to be pretty upset if they take a lot of the same, pretty much just copy and paste with different characters, something like that?
So we talked about Avatar 1 and Avatar 2, and those are the exact same show. But the difference is one is interactable. I get to make my own story and play it how I want, right? So the game of Fallout, like I said, they could take the questing and the storyline of like Fallout 3. I don't want the same thing, but like how good it was, how deep, how rich it was, and give us like the combat of 4. Like, I don't necessarily need like a whole new different like character build, or like I don't need in-depth character building like I have on Baldur's Gate, because I can't see my people. I can't, like, I need a game, but I want it to be true to Fallout. Like, if they tried to get away from what makes Fallout so great, I think I'd be more disappointed than even if they just said, hey, we remastered Fallout 3, Fallout 4, right?
Give me like a date 4 years out for Fallout 5 and 18 months out, like a launch for New Vegas remastered. I would be so happy.
Yeah, like, so in a lot of ways, yes. Like, Call of Duty, if Call of Duty was to release another Call of Duty, it's the same thing. I'd be like, dude, because there's no decisions there. It's just gun, and it is essentially the same thing. And I hate Call of Duty to this day. I only play it because my buddies. But like, that Fallout is different. Just like Skyrim. Skyrim is different. Elder Scrolls is different. Like, they can almost copy and paste those games, and people will play them.
Yeah. It's true.
Ben, you have a hard stop in 2 minutes. Anything you want to talk about before we dip?
No, I'm very glad that we get all this amazing new content that we can, be nerdy about. I think we're in the golden age of nerdy content, which is great. And I'm really happy Fallout was a success. So I just bought my PlayStation Portal, so I'm gonna be playing my a new playthrough starting this weekend. So it'll be
You're
fun.
gonna be evil or good?
I'm gonna be good.
You're good.
I'm gonna play as Lucy, I think.
Now, when you are good, are you like line walking good, or are you what suits me but try to lean good?
I'm a utilitarian good. Like if somebody needs to die for the greater community, as I determine it, I will do it. But I'm not a rule book following. Like this is the right thing to do. Like, yeah. So there are nuances.
I try to be like a walk that line. Like if I'm good, I'm like, what is the right good choice?
Yeah.
And if I'm evil, everybody's fucking dying.
That's rough.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Ben. Well, we appreciate you hanging out with us. Thank you so much,
was a lot of
everybody
fun.
that checked it out and everything. We appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
All right. See you guys later. Have a good weekend.
Goodbye.